Welcome and thank you for joining us this morning for Issues and Views, Buffalo, New York's weekly public affairs program focusing on topics and concerns that affect you and your community. We hope the information you hear today is beneficial to you. Now here's your Issues and Views host, Todd Anderson.
Good morning and welcome to Issues and Views. I'm your host, Todd Anderson, and this morning we're going to talk about what everyone's talking about, the election coming up on Tuesday, November 8th, and this should be a very helpful program to you. We're going to go over all the ins and outs of voting and what should be expected at the voting polls, and we're pleased and honored to have with us our guest this morning from the Erie County Board of Elections, Commissioner Ralph Mohr. Commissioner Mohr, thanks for joining us, and thank you for being willing to speak with us this morning.
Oh, you're welcome. Good morning, Ted.
Let's start out by identifying what the qualifications are for voting.
Well, you have to be a resident of New York State and the locality for 25 days prior to the election, or recently moved into the state from another county or another state, and then you would be able to register to vote.
Okay.
You have to be basically a U.S. citizen and over 18 years of age.
Okay. And now at this point, it's probably too late to register, right?
That's correct. It would be too late for someone who has not previously registered to currently register for this year's election. Once in a while, we'll get individuals who are not registered to vote come to the voting place and fill out what's called an affidavit ballot, and that would have registration information on it. And even though the vote this year may not count, that person would then be registered to vote for all future elections.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, once you register, if you don't move, do you have to do anything? Do you have to register every 4 years?
No, that's not the case. If you register to vote with the Erie County Board of Elections and you do not move outside of the county of Erie, your registration will still remain in effect, and you're going to be eligible to vote and cast your vote at this year's election.
Now, when you get that card in the mail, which I've lived in Rochester, so the last election I was in Rochester, so I moved here now. I had to re-register, and I got my card, and it tells me to go to a specific location. So do I have to go to that specific location?
Yes, you do. We have over 380 polling sites and many more, over 870 precincts within those polling sites where people register to vote. The reason for that is that we break up the population into more manageable sections, so you're not standing in very long lines to vote.
Right.
But secondly, the information is contained within a book that the inspectors have in the district in which you live. So even if you were registered, say, to vote originally in Tonawanda, but then moved to Sardinia, which is within Erie County, you would be still eligible to vote even if you hadn't re-registered, but you would have to vote in Sardinia.
Oh, okay. Now
where you live currently is where you're going to go to vote.
All right. Now the machines, I guess you could say, or the voting poll equipment, is it updated? Is it still a little antiquated?
Oh, no, we're using the latest technology with regard to the optical scan. Many of the machines are less than 5 years old.
Oh, okay.
And they're constantly maintained, and the software is upgraded to provide for quicker, faster voting. In Erie County, we have optical, as across New York State, we have an optical scan system, which means that you receive a paper ballot from the inspectors. You will then be able to go to an area of the voting place which you can mark your ballot in private, and then you will deposit your ballot into an optical scan machine. That can be put in upside down, backwards, sideways. It will accept it in any manner. and count your vote. The machine will indicate on the screen whether you made an error in your voting or whether your vote has been counted. And if you make an error, it will return the ballot to you so you can make the correction. And one of the things many people do not realize, that if you're marking the ballot and you review your ballot before you put it into the machine, you say, oh, I made a mistake, you are entitled to take that ballot and write void on it, fold it in half or rip it up, and bring it back to the inspector and return it to the inspector, and the inspector will give you a new ballot so you're comfortable with the vote and you're able to make sure that what you wanted to do that day to vote is actually what's going to get recorded.
Okay, well, that's good information. Now, it sounds like everything at this point is all digital, as opposed to a while ago when you had to pull the lever down and it was somewhat analog, right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Now, how do I check to see if I am registered to vote?
Well, the best way to do it is to either call our offices at the Erie County Board of Elections, or which is 858-8891, or you can check our website, which is www.elections.erie.gov. You'll be able to enter your name, your birth date, and your address. It will then take you to a page to inform you whether you're registered to vote, and also give you the polling location where you are to cast your vote.
Okay. So 716-858-8891 to see if you're registered to vote, or you can go online to elections.erie.gov, right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And now we've already gone over where do I vote. When you register, you'll get a card in the mail. It will identify where you should go to vote. And what happens if I'm out of town or sick on Election Day? What happens then?
Well, if you're out of town or you're sick on Election Day, you're still able to vote by an absentee ballot. Our offices are open tomorrow from 9 a.m. till 12, and they're open all day Monday until 5 o'clock from 9 to 5, where you could come down to the Board of Elections or send someone down with an application to the Board of Elections to pick up your ballot. If you come in person, you can fill out the application right at the Board of Elections, receive your ballot, vote it, and hand it right back over the counter in the sealed envelope, and you'll be added to the votes on Election Day. If you're not able to come down to the Board of Elections, you can send somebody down by downloading an application either off our website or giving us a call, and we'll send you an application or direct you how to get an application. And you can have somebody come down, hand over that application, and pick up your ballot and bring it to you.
Now, Commissioner Mohr, what if you lose your voter registration card?
Well, if you lose your registration card, there's no reason to be distraught. You do not need that registration card to vote. It serves basically two purposes. One is it speeds up the process a little bit by being able to give it to the inspector, and they can find your name quicker in the book. But it also provides a check to the Board of Elections to inform you of where your polling place is and to verify that you're still living at that address. And if we get it back from the post office, as we do a number of cards each year, it may have your forwarding address that we've already moved you to your new location. But if you misplace the card or don't have the card with you, still we encourage you to go to the polling site. All your information is going to be contained within that book that the inspectors has. So all you have to do is give them your name and your address, and they'll be able to find you in the book. So
does that mean I don't need ID?
In most instances, the comparison of the handwriting is sufficient to have you validated to go and receive a ballot from the inspectors. If you want to be safe, bring along any government-issued ID. In many instances, you will not be asked to produce any type of identification, but in the rare instance in which you are, you'll then have something that will be able to identify you. A driver's license, a Social Security card, anything along those lines would be acceptable.
So doesn't that leave room for someone to come in and say there's someone else?
Well, the information that's contained within the inspector book has your signature, so the inspectors do a verification that shows that your signatures are identical or close to identical. It also has information with regard to your address and eye color, that type of stuff. So we haven't had that as a problem in Erie County.
All right, and another question I was going to ask you, how do you prevent from someone voting twice?
Well, because you vote at a specific location, your information is only contained in one place in that location. So if you go to your polling site, which you're required to go to, you would sign the book and you'd be handed a ballot. If you appeared at another site, you would and insisted on voting, your name would not be in the book, so you would not be able to have a ballot which could be deposited and counted in the optical scan machine.
Okay.
You would be handed a ballot which is called an affidavit ballot, where you would be required to fill out various information on the envelope and then deposit the ballot in the envelope. Those are also given out in instances in which people say aren't in the book. You go to your proper polling site, but you now move from one town to another, and you didn't bother to re-register, so your name's not in at your current location. You would be handed the ballot. You changed your name because you got married or you got divorced, and you didn't bother to notify the Board of Elections, and the inspector wasn't able to find you in the book. You would be handed this affidavit ballot. It would be marked as an affidavit ballot. It would be deposited in the envelope, and all those envelopes come back to the Board of Elections and then get researched. If we saw that you registered at your old polling site, if you voted somewhere else, we would then either validate or invalidate the ballot based on the information that we find, and we undergo basically a 3-week investigation of all of those ballots.
Wow.
Each year we have about 7,000 ballots in a presidential year, which would be cast by means of affidavit ballot, and somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 of those ballots we find to be valid, and then they get counted. And the ones, of course, where somebody has voted twice or they weren't registered to vote, those would be determined to be invalid and then would not be counted. But as I had said earlier, if you were not registered to vote at all and your vote doesn't get counted because you didn't register to vote, we would take that information off of that envelope and then register you for all future elections.
Okay. And I have a question. You have to be 18, 21, or?
You have to be 18 years of age and a U.S. citizen to be eligible to vote.
All right.
And a resident of the state of New York.
Okay, and I was watching, this will be funny, I was watching, it was either like a 60-minute show or a sitcom. I believe it was a 60 Minutes type news program the other day. And this news person traveled to some little town in Pennsylvania to talk to some high school students. And they did a mock election. But I noticed that right before they did the election, some of the students had on shirts with one of the candidates' names on the shirt. And they were told, you can't wear those to the voting booth. You can't have any signage or anything that reflects any type of candidate that's running or that's a part of the election. Is that true in every state? Is it state to state, or how does that work?
Well, the New York State electioneering is prohibited within 100 feet of the polling site. Beyond 100 feet of the door of the polling site, you're able to stand there, pass out literature, have trucks with banners and balloons and signs. You can wear T-shirts and everything else. Okay. Once you get past that marker, however, you can conduct no electioneering. People who have T-shirts on are asked to, cover them up. If you have a button on, you'd be asked to remove it. And you also wouldn't be able to encourage other voters to vote one particular way or another, all within that 100 feet and within the polling booth. Outside of the 100 feet, You have free speech right to try to convince anyone to vote your way.
What type of security is normally at voting locations? Is it the local police or just security people, or?
Well, there are 4 inspectors, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans present at each polling site. In addition to that, we have coordinators that travel from site to site that are employees of the Board of Elections. It is the inspectors and the coordinators' responsibility in the first instance to maintain the order and peace at the polling site. In the event that the situation becomes unruly, and we have very, very limited instances in which that has occurred, police can be called to respond and to take care of the situation.
Okay. Now, early voting, I hear people, and I've seen some of my friends on Facebook say, I voted, and I'm wondering, how'd you do that? How do you vote early?
Well, New York State does not have early voting. Other states do. New York State has a situation which is the absentee voting, in which case you can cast your ballot. We've been accepting ballots actually since the beginning of October for people who are either permanently confined, know already that they will be out of town on Election Day. If you're out of the county on Election Day, you're able to apply. If you're working as an election inspector at another location from what you normally vote, you're able to cast your ballot early and to vote already. So we have sent out approximately 26,000 absentee ballots so far in Erie County, and we have over 14,000 of those ballots already voted and returned to the Board of Elections. They, of course, aren't counted until Election Day, but those votes are going to be included within the tally. That also includes people who are serving in embassies overseas, our military, and those people who are foreign nationals.
Now, it's probably too late to apply, right?
No. You can still apply in person at the Board of Elections or have an application brought down. And if you have the deadline for mailing back an application has passed. However, we do recognize that there are certain circumstances which occur, such as somebody gets into an accident, gets rushed to a hospital, and we will make special arrangements at the Erie County Board of Elections to get you a ballot under those circumstances. We utilize email, we utilize Federal Express, we sometimes deliver the ballots. We had one instance that I like to talk about, and back in the 2004 general election, where we received a call the day before the election from a truck driver who had not received his absentee ballot. We faxed his absentee ballot to a truck stop in North Carolina.
Wow.
He voted it, and it came back and was counted.
Wow, that's really neat. Now, when are the polls open?
The polls are open across New York State from 6 a.m. in the morning, and they close at 9 p.m. at night. If there is a line, and there usually isn't much of a line in Erie County, but if there is a line at 9 o'clock and you're standing in line, and you will be allowed to vote even past 9 o'clock, as long as you are present at the polling site and presenting yourself for voting at 9 o'clock. So if you're standing in a line, you're 10th person in line, you don't have to worry. It's not like a bank which is going to shut the doors and take no more transactions. We're going to take everybody who is in line at 9 o'clock and allow you the opportunity to vote. So
I can't physically come to any polling booth prior to Election Day at 6 a.m., right?
No, that's correct. It has to be between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9 p.m.
Now, when I show up to vote, obviously I show up, I'm standing in line, and I get up to my turn. They identify who I am, and then I go and vote. Correct? Is that pretty much? That simple?
That's a simple explanation of it, yes. You will present yourself at the table where the inspectors are. You will state your name, and they will find you in the registered list of polls that we have in their book. Once they find your name, you're going to be asked to sign that you received a ballot. You will be handed a ballot and then directed to an area at the polling site where you can sit down behind a privacy booth or stand at a privacy booth and then cast your vote. Once you're completed casting your vote on the paper, marking your ballot, you then go over to the optical scan machine and deposit it yourself into the ballot.
Now, can I? Am I obligated to vote for president?
No, you could vote for everyone on the ballot, for each office on the ballot, or you can skip various offices. And we've even had instances in which somebody walked in, didn't like anybody on the ballot, and cast a blank vote.
Wow.
In addition to that, let's say you get into a situation where you're into an office and you don't like any of the candidates running for office. In a general election, you have the opportunity also to write in the name of a candidate.
Really?
So you can write in your own name, you can write in your parents' name, you can write in the name of your best friend.
Wow.
And that will also get scanned and tallied as well.
Now, is there, outside of watching the news, is there a place you can go to actually see how the voting is turning out, like real time?
Right. We have in Erie County, we publish our results on the web, and it's the same website that I'd given you before, elections.erie.gov.
Okay.
It starts at 9 o'clock, and it's real-time voting as we count the ballots. As the polls close and the results get reported, those numbers will start changing. The New York State Board of Elections has a website for the statewide candidates and the presidential candidate, and then, of course, you can watch TV as well. Generally, by 11 o'clock, we have many of the races are completed,
right,
and the results have been tallied. Those are unofficial results because we still are permitted to receive ballots from overseas as long as you voted the ballot the day prior to the election. Like my son is in the military in Korea. He mailed his ballot. We don't have to receive that on Election Day. We have up to 13 days after the election to receive that ballot and to count that vote. And what we do is we do tally those votes and add them into our final certification, which doesn't occur until December.
Now, do you and the workers get to vote?
Oh, yes. Some of the workers here at the Board of Elections have already cast their ballots because they are afraid that they're not going to be able to, they will be so busy that they're not going to be able to get to their regular polling site.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Generally, during the course of the day, we try to assign people so they can swing by their polling site and vote. And I generally vote at my polling site at some point during the day as well.
And this is all volunteer work. The people that work at the polls are volunteering, right?
Well, the people that work at the polls do get paid. It's nowhere near the amount that they should get paid for the job that they do, but they get $170 for working the day. It's from 5:30 in the morning until 9:30 at night. We continually ask for increases and have been able to get some increases over the years, and we will continue to do so. But they do a very good job. Work very long hours for very little pay.
Well, how do you get involved if you want to help out?
If you want to become an election inspector, you can contact the Board of Elections. There's a form on our website which you can fill out. We will then process that, and if we're able to utilize you in the area, you do have to go to a training session. And then each year that you work, you do have to attend about a 3-hour class where we go over the voting procedures and the different types of votes and how to handle situations on Election Day. But we certainly do encourage people who are interested in becoming election inspectors to please notify us. Either send us a letter, go on our website and fill out a form, or send us a comment, and somebody will be in contact with you.
Now, obviously, it's too late for someone to apply for this election, right?
Well, this election would be difficult to get the training in.
Yeah.
We do have some training online,
Okay.
and I know that there are still a few areas across the county where we're missing an inspector.
Huh.
As I said, there's a complement of 4 inspectors. There's 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats at each location.
Okay.
And there are some locations where we only have 3 inspectors so far. So if they are interested, please contact us. It can't hurt.
And the website, again, if you're interested in becoming an inspector, do it quickly. It's elections.erie.gov, and you can pretty much get all the information there that you need. Even during the election, as Commissioner Mohr just said, you can go there and see the results real time. Elections.erie.gov. And Commissioner Mohr, does my vote actually count?
Yes, it really does, and we get that question a lot from people who, somebody will win by a large margin, and they say, oh, they just declared them the winner, and they're not going to actually count each and every vote that was cast. And that's not true. We do count each and every vote that's cast. What we do is we have an unofficial tally on election night, and whether a candidate wins by 1 vote or 1,000 votes,
right.
We still go and count any absentee ballots that may still arrive, any affidavit paper ballots that were cast at the polls, any ballots which may have come from overseas in the military, and we add and tally those in. Certainly they may not make a difference in a race which is already won by a candidate by a large margin, but we've had races in Erie County won by a single vote, countywide by 5 votes, where every vote does matter and every vote does get counted.
Now, is it possible for a candidate to win the popular vote and lose the election because they had less, electoral votes?
Yeah, so in the presidency, we're actually voting for the electors of a particular party who will then select the candidate. You need 270 electoral votes, and it has happened in the past where a candidate has won the popular vote, but the distribution was such that they did not win the electoral college.
Wow.
And therefore the other candidate was elected. But that's only in the office of the president and vice president. It's not in the other offices, which are all elected by popular vote.
Okay, that's got to be kind of disappointing if that happens to any candidate. So we talked about how you report the vote results at elections.erie.gov. And let's see if I have any more questions. Can the results be tampered with any kind of way?
No. And it's very important to know that once that ballot is deposited into the machine and it says your vote is counted, your vote is recorded on that machine in multiple manners. There are several electronic chips which not only record the vote count, but also take a picture of the ballot. That doesn't necessarily mean that we can identify who cast that ballot, but in the event that the voting machine was to be stolen that night, we would still be able to reproduce every ballot that was cast on that machine. When we report the results on election night, that's done in 2 methods. One, by the inspectors calling in the results from each of the locations and verifying that against the information that we have that are physically handed to us by a chip from the voting machine. So if the results were to be tampered with, it would have to be somebody physically located at the Board of Elections office who would be able to override what the inspectors called us, override what our internal tally is, and override the chip that's in the machine. And that is just an impossibility because they're done at different locations.
All right. And last question is, how do I know the machines are accurate?
Each year, we conduct test voting on every single machine where we mark ballots intentionally with a predetermined result, and we send it through to make sure the machines are counted accurately. And then after each election, we take a sample of machines, open up those machines, and hand count every ballot in every race that was cast on that machine and compare it to the results which were reported on the tape. And in over 8 years that we've been doing that, we have not had one discrepancy yet. And that's the way we verify that it was working when we sent the machine out, and it was working after we had the machine returned.
And last question, I don't know if you can offer your opinion with respect to this question, but would you say that it's important to vote?
It's very important to vote. As I said, in Erie County, we have a number of important races. The candidates have spent a lot of time, a lot of money invested into their campaigns. But in Erie County, we've had races that have been decided by a single vote. We've had countywide races decided as few as 5 votes, whether it be voting by showing up at the polls on Election Day or by mailing in an absentee ballot or coming down to the Board of Elections office and casting your vote prior to Election Day because you're going to be out of town. Your vote does matter, and it has affected a number of candidacies and a number of elections.
All right. Well, Commissioner Mohr, just a bevy of information here. Thank you very, very much. Some things that I didn't know. And if you are listening and you're involved in this year's election, which hopefully you are, and you have any more questions, you can call this number at 716-858-8891. That's the Erie County Board of Elections. Or you can go to their website, which is elections.erie.gov, and you can do all sorts of stuff there, get all kind of information. Even if you'd like to become an inspector, poll inspector, there's an application there to do that, and applications for absentee ballot, et cetera, et cetera. Commissioner Mohr, once again, thank you very, very much, and you guys do a wonderful job, and I'm sure you'll be glad when this is over, just like all of us.
Thank you, Dan. Yes, you're welcome.
Oh, Commissioner Mohr, one very important question that I failed to ask. Felons, convicted felons, can they vote?
Under New York State and federal law, if you are serving a period of incarceration or parole, you are not eligible to vote. However, once you have completed your period of incarceration and your period of parole, you would then be able to re-register to vote and cast your ballot, yes. You have to serve any period of parole that you have, but once that is completed, you're then eligible to go and register to vote.
Okay. All right, well, thanks once again.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The views, opinions, and comments expressed on the program are those of the participants and not necessarily of this station.